Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Quest for Excellence series brought to you by Intellectus Consulting. Intellectus Consulting has been devoted to the cause of raising the standards of marketing excellence in our pharmaceutical industry for the past 3.5 years through a series of interventions such as workshops, brand coaching assignments, webinars, blogs, and also through industry sponsored forums. The Quest for Excellence series, which kicked off in July, has featured interactions with several business leaders across the functions or domains, as we call of leadership excellence, marketing excellence, brand building excellence, commercial excellence, and strategy excellence. It has always been our endeavor to have business leaders share their perspectives on what it takes to be the best in any of these five functional domains. Business leaders who have come on to our series have very candidly and very willingly shared their lives' learnings as well as their experiences as to how they went about building the brands, businesses for their organizations. And along the way, they shared also their stories of success as well as failures, which I think is very important to look at in an overall context of this journey towards excellence. Today, my guest is another senior business leader who has distinguished himself in the domain of marketing excellence. And I'm sure the audience, which essentially comprises of product managers, product executives, group product managers, group therapy managers, marketing heads, and even business heads, would find this interaction today extremely useful because he is recognized as one of those marketing leaders who has built sizable brands and businesses in our industry. My guest for today is Mr. Sudeep Sheru, who is the Senior Director for Marketing and Emerging Markets for the prescription business of Dr. Reddy's Laboratories and supports marketing for the emerging markets as a part of the Center of Excellence for Dr. Reddy's. Sudeep has had a long and distinguished career in our industry for almost 21 years. He began his career way back in 1998 with AstraZeneca, which was then known as Astra Ideal, in the product management function and managed brands in the respiratory care portfolio for the management of asthma. After a stint of 3 years, he then joined Dr. Reddy's in Hyderabad in his first stint of 8 years, where he was the brand manager for the cardiology franchise. In those 8 years, he had a very successful vertical growth, moving through increased roles and responsibilities as a group brand manager, group therapy manager, associate director marketing, and finally landing in a role of P&L responsibility as the divisional head for one of the cardiology divisions of the company. This is a classical example of how when one builds a career on the tenets of marketing excellence. He had a successful stint later on with Biocon Limited as the senior director for cardiology for about 2.5 years. And then around 2014 end, he joined back Dr. Reddy's in the emerging markets business, which supports the global markets ex-India for marketing and excellence and driving the growth of the brands for Dr. Reddy's in these markets. Today, Sudeep is a senior director and he drives marketing excellence, and he also ensures that the most important brands of the business for emerging markets of DRL are given the due attention and identification for future growth opportunities. It is my privilege to have Sudeep on this series today and look forward to a very engaging interaction with him over the next 45 minutes or so.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very fine. Good to see you after a really long time.
Oh, yeah, same here.
And so I just want to straight away dive into our conversation. Sudeep, the very first thing is, You started your career, I guess, with Astra Ideal, which is now called AstraZeneca, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he has a brand management role handling the respiratory care franchise,
Yes.
the company. And that was a time, if I remember right, was the period of transition for Astra from the Astra Ideal entity to getting into the AstraZeneca entity almost.
Yes. Yes.
So I had just a couple of questions. How was it for you in terms of the cultural shift, from a totally Indianized outfit of Astra to the AstraZeneca way of,
Yeah.
brands? And did you see any noticeable change in the brand planning processes, brand marketing, and, building brands approaches, essentially
Right.
in that 3 to 4 years that you were with the company? So that would probably set, and your learnings essentially around that.
Sure. 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 Thanks for having me, first of all. And, I'll be happy to share my learnings that I've gone through various experiences within AstraZeneca or other organizations. To begin with, in AstraZeneca, I think you're right. When this change happened and AstraZeneca came in, I think if I have to put it in one word, the big experience shift was essentially focus. So, I still remember lots of things that we would have done in Astra Ideal days. We had a portfolio which ranged, about 28 to 30 brands. And when AstraZeneca came in, the first thing I distinctly remember as an exercise was on portfolio prioritization. And this experience for me was quite significant because till then I felt it was right to have those many brands, and they were meaningful brands. So the question that came to my mind was whether we'll be able to continue our business if these brands were removed from the portfolio. And believe me, the exercise that we did reduced the brands to 8 from 28 or 30 brands, which is a very drastic shift. But believe me, that was the big shift. And when I meant the word focus, this was one of the exercise that essentially brought focus onto those few brands that could drive the business in a profitable and sustainable manner. So there were big and small brands, but we had a very intense exercise, uh, and they had a proprietary model of, a traffic signal. So essentially, brands that would get categorized under red, yellow, and green. And the green were the brands, and of course, there were a lot of parameters that decided which brands would feature where. But that exercise, first time, actually changed my thinking that you cannot be everything to everybody, and you really have to choose your battles where you want to win. And this was one such exercise. So focus was a big culture change that happened. I think another thing that I would remember, because it was in the first few days of its inception, was the effort and the time the organization spent on capability building. It was immense. So the entire, so one was a part of the change management itself, and the other was to generally spend a lot of time on improving the capabilities of the team members that were there. Um, we had several workshops with the global teams coming in there, and that really helped one to look at a world differently than the way we have been seeing otherwise. That opened our eyes to global wisdom that existed elsewhere, and that essentially brought out some frameworks and tools into the system which weren't existing earlier, and that actually helped a lot in how the entire team would see at look at processes in a particular manner, in a harmonized manner, and then implement those learnings in every single brand that we had. So broadly, I would categorize focus and capability building as two distinct cultural changes that happened, which were very helpful.
I think you put it very brilliantly, Sudeep, because the transition that was happening was so critical. Uh,
Yes.
put it so beautifully in terms of both focus and capability building. There was also a cultural transformation undergoing in the organization because it was more of an Indianized version of a multi
Absolutely.
outpost. We would not even call it an affiliate or a subsidiary,
Yeah.
outpost. uh,
Yes.
the organization, because I started my career there. So we just
Right.
Astra Export and Trading, and not
Yes.
as
Yes.
and then to be called as an affiliate or subsidiary was a huge shift in terms of mindset and
Absolutely.
priorities. And I think you captured it so beautifully that that sent a signal in terms of focus and in terms of capability building. And also, I think the third important piece is when you have global teams coming in and giving the
Yes.
best practices. I think it signals very strongly that they are intent to build the business in India and stay committed. Is also
Absolutely.
which
Absolutely.
probably was missing till the
Yeah.
equity issues and holding patterns got sorted. Very beautifully said. And you handle the respiratory care, which is, I think, the asthma care portfolio.
Yes. Yes.
So what, did you ever see any changes in the way the brands were getting built pre Zeneca time and post? Is there anything?
Yeah. Yeah. So again, there, in the Astra Ideal days, I remember in the asthma franchise that we had, we used to have a product which was very meaningful for the patient. Unfortunately, not the most relevant then because of certain um, competitive advantages which the competitors had. So, for example, Cipla was a very powerful, very strong player, and I really salute the way they innovated in the space. Unfortunately, in Astra Ideal, we could not, even though we understood the customer needs, our hands were tied to bring about those changes because of the way the organization was set up then. However, when AstraZeneca came in, I think this is where they started acting with agility, responding to customer needs, and I think that is where the first inception of the Turbohaler came in. So, Symbicort Turbohaler was the answer to the needs of the patient. Again, I wouldn't say that that was a product which was meant for all, but yes, it was an extremely meaningful and relevant product for the people who really needed it. Uh, Evidence-based marketing was another thing because a lot of evidence and data behind every claim that we made. So I think the believability and the credibility that created, with the with Turbo coming in, that was very significant, which was in a way missing before that. So even though we knew the customer needs, we couldn't really act on it. And I think Symbicort Turbohaler was one way of responding to those consumer needs.
Excellent, excellent. Very nicely said. Thank you so much, Sudeep. I think it was when you look back today at that initial days. I think probably you would look at it with the fond memories in terms of the culture,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. I think I still love that organization, that being the first one. So
Right.
absolutely agree.
As they say, you never forget your first love in any case.
Yes.
Yeah, great. And so then you armed with that learnings of handling some global brands like Symbicort, Turbohaler,
Yeah. Yeah.
then decided to move to one of the rising stars. In then at that point of time, Dr. Reddy's was building brands
Yes.
very,
Yes.
very strategically and with a lot of ambition. I remember in the cardiology space, gastroenterology,
Correct.
with a lot of invest. So you decide to join DRL, and I think that was one of your great fun rides for almost about 8 years at a stretch.
Yes.
So you join as a product manager, you have vertical growths, you go right up to head of marketing, associated, and then you land up as a divisional P&L head for cardiology
Yeah.
business. A classic vertical growth kind of
Yeah.
industry. So my interest is to ask you, how did you find this shift from AstraZeneca kind of an environment into brand generics environment of, say, Dr. Reddy's in the initial?
Yes. Yes.
What was the difference, if any, in the brand building processes, and what are your learnings? I know as you went along, you grew, but you also obviously learned a lot along those 8 years.
Yes. Yes.
Kindly share with us your
Sure.
great ride in DRL in that first stint.
Sure. So I think the first change that happened was, so you can imagine there was an Astra Ideal, then it became AstraZeneca. So I was wired to a multinational way of thinking. I talked about prioritization, focus on a few brands. And then I moved into Dr. Reddy's, which, like you said, was absolutely at the peak then. And the big change was from a limited focused portfolio, I moved into an organization where they had plenty of brands. So again, it led to another new confusion in my mind. But then I realized very soon that every company and with the objective that they have and the strengths that they bring to the table, they choose their path to succeed. And I think Dr. Reddy's being in a branded generic space, unlike AstraZeneca, which was more in the innovator, few assets. In a branded generic space, it was very important to have a portfolio. And that was a big shock initially, but then when I understood, I really started appreciating the way it's been thought through. Then within AstraZeneca, when I grew within the company, I must say, firstly, within the organization, there was a lot of um, freedom to operate, experiment, test, and learn. I think that's been the culture from the very beginning, and that enabled a lot of learning to everybody, because the best way to learn is to actually do it. And uh, within this, um, I would say that one biggest factor that helped me grow along with my team is about aspiring big. So now, when I say aspiring big, it is not only about having a courage to have big numbers or big aspirations in terms of whatever objectives you've set. It's not necessarily numbers, but extremely important is that a big aspiration also brings about a big plan along with it. A small ambition, a small number, a small chase has a plan which is equally small. So, this was a big thing that I learned, and thanks to my mentors then, who actually said, who always backed me in terms of taking that risk and that big aspiration, which actually made me think much bigger in terms of the planning, the details around it. And that was one of the big learnings for me, which helped me.
Okay.
I think another big thing in Dr. Reddy's, and this is true for any marketing professional, is that by design, this role brings about ability to influence. Some people do it better than others, but then it's an unsaid rule. And if we have to succeed in this, everybody does play a role of influencing, of people leadership, even though they are not direct reportees. But I think that's a big learning, and every marketing professional has succeeded, to whatever the best of their abilities. One of the big reasons is this. So everybody plays this role, willingly, unwillingly, knowingly, unknowingly, but then this does happen. And I think as marketers, everybody has learned the knack of it, and there can always be a scope of improvement.
Right. Right.
So these two big things, in my opinion, have helped me.
So if I understand you correctly, Sudeep, I think one of the great learnings that or you lived with is when you joined Dr. Reddy's was one is setting the aspirations and the ambitions.
Mm.
There was no constraint to putting
Absolutely.
your aspirations and ambitions, which is very important when you go about building the brand and the business.
Correct.
The outset, right?
Yes.
And second thing, I think you very beautifully said is that along with no constraints, you also had the ability. When you got empowerment from your leadership to go out there, seek resources, and make it happen in line with your aspirations, which is again a very big thing when you do a lot of brand building.
Yes.
In your
Yes.
organization, I think these are because these are enablers. I don't know if you
Yes.
otherwise they
Absolutely.
can become hurdles. You have great plans, but you're not able to execute
Absolutely.
the empowerment and the ability to and back those aspirations. I think
Yes.
that's I think the cultural milieu of the organization, like Dr. Reddy's, which facilitates it, right? It would be
Yes.
say that, right?
Yes.
And I think the third piece you said is the power of influencing. It's like a soft skill.
Yeah.
You drive cross-functional leadership as well to make things happen, right? So
Correct.
these are some of the things, right? And this is very beautiful. So you have learnings from the AZ period where you come in with focus and prioritization. Then you
Yes.
on these skill sets get added on to your inventory of skills. And so as a result, your ability to
Absolutely.
learning curve, going up the curve is very high. Right, that's nice. Sudeep, I have a question, and as an external observer, when I used to see in the early 2000s, when the high turbocharged space, DRL used to think, and I think still thinks, much more rigorously than even the blue-blooded multinationals per se,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of brand building as
Mm-hmm.
a function of the area, and they wouldn't settle for anything less than probably market leadership, one or two
Right.
segments, like the G way of thinking.
Yes. Yes.
We used to see brands like Enalapril, Enam, the first
Mm.
that comes to a cardiologist's mind. When you talk of Amlo, Stamlo.
Mm.
You want to talk of Nimesulide, it's nice. You talk of Omeprazole, it's Omaze. And you talk of, glycoside, Recline.
Absolutely.
So it's very interesting, Sudeep, that it's so beautifully they have built brands over the years which are leaders in their position. So I'm sure there is the DRL way of building brands and the processes, etc.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So from a leadership and brand building planning standpoint, just a very broad question: how does DRL do this? I mean, it's very interesting to hear for a colleague the aspirational piece, the processes piece. What does it go into? From a broad piece standpoint. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think again I would bring in certain processes now, and it existed in some way earlier. It has only got strengthened now. And what I'm actually meaning about is the entire product management process, which is actually making the brand manager to think right from the beginning of need identification and having your products which are tailor made to the needs. So it begins with that, and it has various stages, of course. But just to cut it short, before you actually get into even the launch, there are lots of things that get into a successful launch. So the entire product management process deals from new products to launches to lifecycle management of existing products to even exiting these products. Now it's very important to even exit brands at the right time so that you're able to focus on the right ones and at the right time. Now, in order to do this, the skill that I'm talking about is actually strategic thinking. Now, it is, as a process, am I today having a visibility of what would happen to the brand 5 years and 10 years hence? Uh, Extremely important. And I understand, and I've also gone through, so I would accept that processes at times can be a little overwhelming. But what I've learned over the period of time is that these are the things which actually bring that discipline and rigor in thinking. And I think strategic thinking is one skill which has been applied, and the process has been used as a framework for us uh, to bring this thinking over a period of time. So this is one big piece which has helped, and of course there are finer details of other things that get into it. But if I was to put how a brand building has been brought in, it's because of a long-term visibility, a clear visibility of what we want to deliver to the patient.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've spoken to other business leaders from your organization, and they also have concurred on this that you don't think short term.
Yes.
Minimum think for 5 years to the next 7 years.
Yes.
Because you have to deal with the life cycle of the brand and you have to manage it either through various initiatives, indication expansions, or new product launch, SKUs, or whatever it is.
Yes. Yes.
Or a new indication per se,
Correct.
So I think that's very, and I think this is, I think probably differentiates brand building processes from other organizations, the ability to think long term with no pressure on the immediacy, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you are very clearly committed to the whole process right from
Absolutely.
the commercialization to the commercialization and
Correct.
post-launch stage. Right. Sudeep, I'll go on to a question where you have, apart from marketing as your core functional area over the years, you've also been, a person who's had people reporting into you at various
Yep.
levels in marketing, and you've also driven the function of strategic marketing excellence
Yes.
to an extent. Not only earlier, but also in your current role.
Yes.
Question is at two levels. Uh, how today's marketeers, that is brand managers, GPMs, marketing heads,
Mhm.
into the organization, either from other organizations or through the system, you groom them to take on higher. Have you seen any areas where they really stand out and shine through, and there are areas of development, because and do you find any palpable weaknesses which you see can be coached and capable, built on those capabilities we see?
Mhm.
And why I'm raising this question is because very often we see areas when we work with our clients, found they need handholding around areas like life cycle management, pricing, and strategic areas of the business.
Yeah.
This seems to be a little bit of an endemic weakness per se. What's your take on it? And I'm not leading you to it, but if you feel,
Sure.
what do you think about
Sure.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. So um, I agree, and before I even get in there, um, I also want to put a word of appreciation for the industry and the members of this industry, because one great thing which we never experienced before was the pandemic, and how this team has adapted to that challenge in a very quick manner to ensure that business continuity is something worth appreciating. So I think where I'm heading to is people in the industry, and the industry in itself is capable of responding to a stimulus in a very good manner. Uh, Something that I agree to the point that you actually mentioned on certain aspects, like strategic thinking. Now, long-term thinking and a strategic thinking. In fact, if we were to narrow down a brand's promise to a patient, I think getting into those specificity of what do I stand for a patient that I'm going to solve this problem for. Answering those specifics, the more clear the brand manager is, the more clear is the vision. So um, I think that is an area of improvement, definitely. The second thing is, how does that come? How do I know what can I deliver and what will be meaningful for this patient? Is actually understanding the insights. So what are the needs, what are the triggers, the barriers in adoption of these, what are those moments of truth? Typically lots of these things are not visible and not known. Had we known that better, probably my understanding of what I want to deliver to this patient today and in the next 5 years would have been more clear. So I think where I'm leading to is emphasis and the process involved to get the proper insighting, which also means my commitment and spends to get that piece of information. And then, translating it into an actionable plan, which is, meaningful for us. And thinking over a long term is I think these are the two big areas, in my opinion, which definitely need improvement. A third one, which I would probably everybody would have said, and I would say it for repetition, is the creativity. Uh, we are in a branded generic in an extremely cluttered space, and that's a reality. So whatever we may be doing, and we have done well in this, but I think we all know that in this clutter, and this clutter is not necessarily only with the brands that exist today. Our customers are distracted by hundreds of other things which are beyond our industry alone and the brands alone. So finding that sweet spot where the customer is willing to listen and pay attention to what we are saying and then become meaningful and relevant to them is a challenge in itself. So for sake of repetition, I would still say creativity and innovation is still an improvement area.
This is interesting, and I say so because I wanted to have your pick your my brains on how about the other aspects of which are very crucial to building brands or the plan planning
Mhm,
process, like
mhm.
strategic thinking, which is very
Yes, yes.
second is areas of quantitative rigor, data
Mm,
analytics,
mm, mm. Yes,
ability to be comfortable with numbers, data analytics, churn through those data sets, pick up those
absolutely.
needs and trends. Again, do you find managers are comfortable sifting through data and seeing patterns?
Not really, not
Uh,
really, because um, there was one level of analytics a few years back which we considered reasonable. Today, with the quantum of data that is available and the analytics, the deep dive that can be done with it is unthinkable.
yes,
And data today is the new currency, and data can give us so much knowledge about our customers.
absolutely.
Probably we can be the more, wiser among the lot to gain that competitive edge. And I think today that's a clear gap.
That's a clear gap. So you tend to agree, Sudeep, that there is an area of
Absolutely.
improvement and
Absolutely.
and the reason I say this, Sudeep, because we are having this wonderful conversation, I was recently talking to a guy from IQVIA, and he said that today you have data and prescription audits at a pin code level of a city.
Yes.
So I don't see any reason why brand managers should not look,
Absolutely.
spot the trends, and utilize it for better.
Absolutely.
So that quantitative rigor is something which also I think goes into it.
Absolutely. And
Plus,
the way things are going, we will need to translate everything into a quantitative manner. Right from, for example, um, any data about a customer, of the way they consume data.
right,
Everything has to be translated into a quantitative manner for us to make sense out of it.
right.
The way we engage with customers, that engagement has to be translated into a number for us to keep it measurable.
Yes.
Everything has data, and one of the ways, in fact, not just from analyzing perspective, the effort is also about how do I gather more data which can give me more understanding about my customer.
Right. No, very beautifully said, Sudeep. That's really nice of you to say that. And that's actually one of the areas for food for thought for our
Yes,
industry leaders as to how do you build these capabilities, which are
absolutely.
actually the only real and sustainable, regardless of how much the landscape changes, whether it's
Correct.
digital or digital. The fact is,
Correct.
it has to be strategic thinking, number and quantitative rigor, analysis.
Absolutely.
Sudeep, do you what is your take on this piece that the quality of leadership in terms
Mhm.
of marketing leadership at a head of the marketing level decides the way in which brands are built in an organization? I mean,
Mhm. Mhm.
leader who heads the marketing team is quantitative focused, data driven, as you rightly said earlier in the conversation, evidence based. He wants to bring evidence to the discussion, build brands the right way. It kind of permeates within the team and becomes a philosophy of brand building. Do you think leadership also plays a role? What would you?
No, 100%. I couldn't agree more. This does come from the top, and I think the leader has to show that vision. So today, if we are talking about aspects like digital, new capabilities like using data to the fullest, it all depends on the leader to show the path. For example, how data can make us wiser. Small things. How can data enable finer segmentation? How can data enable more meaningful engagement with the customer? How can data personalize my approach versus competition? See, in a branded market, this becomes more vital than the product itself today. So this is a core competitive advantage in my.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, so that brings me to the next question, which is quite obvious: is you spent 2 decades in the industry, you have
Right.
seen the evolution of marketing in the late '90s to now in the 2020s.
Mhm.
How has it been? How has this journey been? Has it been for the good or has it been the same? What's been your personal take on the level of pharmaceutical marketing and the changes? What
Yeah,
would
yeah.
at a broad context level?
So I think one is what the big change that we see in the recent past, though this was happening for some time, but it has really caught attention in the last 1.5 years or so, is the fact is on digital, for example. This was almost non-existent earlier. We were really hardwired to the fact that I can only do this communication and the selling through a face which is physically present in front of my customer. Today, that has changed. And had this situation not been with us, I think we would have taken a few more years before we would have realized this is possible. Um, Second thing is around data itself, but I think what I would want to qualify it as, uh, we have become more evidence based, and I don't mean just evidence based from the point of view of medical science and the evidence that we may produce, but it is also about, are my actions today more evidence driven, more data driven? I think there is a gradual progress towards that. That's a beautiful change that I am seeing, and it's for good. I think the other thing that I truly believe is happening is, um, we as an industry were too doctor centric, which is good, and they are one of our most important stakeholders. But I think what I'm realizing is the shift towards patients becoming equally important, or probably more. And in my personal view, if as a brand manager or the marketing team would think of patients in a more meaningful manner and at the center of everything that we do, I think we will find more value in everything we do.
All right.
So I'll have products which will be more meaningful, and I think that shift I'm seeing, it's happening. Whether and I know that in an ethical business, in a prescription business, you can't reach out to the patient, but then I cannot exist or I cannot be of value in this ecosystem if I had products and if I had other things which were not patient centric. It's extremely important. These are the few changes which I see it's happening.
I think again the journey in the 2 decades has been, one is obviously the focus on brands and the building of the portfolios that moved to the customer in the early and mid 2000s, where the doctor was the center
Yes,
of the universe. And I think all the new concept we would learn is customer centricity, who's essentially the HCP or the physician and do everything
yes,
around him. And that has now given way to the patient centricity. And you have
yes,
a lot of programs getting built around the patients, which you rightly referred to. Because I think the patient's bargaining power in the last several years has gone up
absolutely,
significantly than what it was before. So I don't know if you agree there, because he's now having
absolutely,
a greater role to play in his care and outcomes than what it was before.
absolutely.
Yeah. Um, the last 5 years, Sudeep, and this is what I'm talking about, is from the trends which we see, and I'm sure you also see it, has
Mhm.
been disruptive for our industry,
Yes,
in the sense where you have never seen such disruptions in the ecosystem before, where technology has met health head on
oh
and
yes,
has produced absolutely amazing results. You have the rising power of the e-pharmacy chains, which were
yes,
about 5 to 6, 7 years ago. They have
yes,
become a huge force to reckon with. Then you have diagnostics playing a larger role in the overall treatment care continuum of patients.
yes,
Platforms like Rankto, which are now calling the shots, and physicians are wanting to enroll themselves, where
absolutely,
shows that what physicians were considered as the gods have also, their power is waning away. Patients now have a choice, democratization of the whole process, that patients are now choosing which physician to go to, which was never the case.
yes,
And then you have things like everyday yoga the pharmacy chains are taking over Thyrocares of the world.
Yes.
The thing, and it's completely very, very high adrenaline stuff, So, as a pharmaceutical major, and when you are seeing this and you're devoted in your own ecosystem of building brands, driving business performance, how does a head like you contextualize this whole thing and then bring it into not just strategy planning process for your business, and just if you have any ideas around this contextualizing and bring it into the decision making, and do you consider this waves of disruption also as a thing to counter for when you plan for?
Yes.
That's what
So, we have this exercise, and I'm sure every company does this, of what you call as long-term planning or strat planning kind of thing, wherein it's very important to actually look at these trends that you just mentioned. So, no strategy can ever start without first understanding what trends are actually, riding the wave right now. So, and because that is what makes all the difference. Uh, so what happens is, as a rhythm, we actually do this every year, and we actually analyze the trends, one that have already set in, and the ones which are likely to set in the next 5 years. And obviously, there could be many, and then we prioritize a few which we believe are high impact ones, and that's the way decisions are taken to one. If there are any threats from those, how do I counter that? The other is, I think, a bigger thing is about how do you ride that opportunity.
Right.
So from an opportunity standpoint, I think what you just said are absolutely disruptive things that are happening. So I don't look into India directly, but I look into the other emerging markets. So, but the trends are similar, and what is happening is these things will absolutely revolutionize the way we do business.
Right.
Lot of our wiring will actually change. What we are so much tuned to in our heads, and it's so evident in the last couple of years. So, for example, e-pharmacy that you just mentioned, it's different in different countries, and it's all to do with a lot of regulations also. But then this is definitely going to happen, and which also brings us to the point. For example, in India, um, we we have less OTC play by most pharma companies. But I think the fact that the power is moving to the consumer, and with channels like e-pharmacy coming up, it is evident that an OTC play would actually ramp up in the coming days.
Right.
So I think lots of implications of these. We are today talking about tech meeting the healthcare in a different way. I think it is absolutely amazing to see these changes, and the way it would help pharmaceutical companies transform from just being pharmaceuticals to healthcare companies. And uh, we were two product centric organizations, all of us. And I think the industry is clearly moving on to what's beyond products, because one can play a role in the entire value chain, right from the early diagnosis to even the treatment adherence. So one has a role that can play across the chain. Today we play in a very, very limited space, and I think which will also mean then um, uh, tech being a part of it would actually mean some amazing partnerships coming in, which will not be the regular ones that we are used to seeing, which is one pharmaceutical giant shaking hands with another one from a product window. But I think it would actually mean a very, very different level of licensing and partnership that would happen. And we would really complement on the skill sets that both of these organizations and industries they bring. So I see a very exciting time, but a very fast changing time. So it's very important we keep up to that pace.
Absolutely. And you've said it very beautifully because the current period that we are in right now is very fast changing. It's rapid. It's
Yes.
very dynamic, and so you're having a lot of disruptive things that's happening from a product centricity to services and consumer
Yes.
experience. And I think I don't know if you what's your position on the COVID pandemic for last 16 months or so
Mhm,
has
mhm.
a force multiplier in this whole transformation piece, which
Absolutely.
the next discussion because you handle emerging markets, and I'm very keen because the evolution of the model in terms of digital transformation for India has been in bits and pieces across the two phases of these 16 months.
Yes.
We
Yes.
went into a state of paralysis, then got out of it, then we did some digital random acts of digital, but yes, the F2F calls were out, we
Correct.
did the stuff, then we did the webinar. So there was spraying of stuff that we typically,
Yes.
as we were not tuned to the digital way of doing right since the beginning, even till the
Correct.
pandemic hit.
Correct.
We learned better in the second phase, and we're still going about doing it. Has it been the same for your other emerging markets as well, or how has been the
Yes.
experience?
No, it's absolutely the same. And emerging markets are no different than India. The set of challenges were very similar. The
Right.
capabilities were also similar. I mean, the lack of it or whatever, it was similar. Now, everybody started off in some way, and I think everybody realized the essence is speed. And business continuity, if that had to go on, one had to stay connected with the customers. So it started off with a very dire situation. People learned, and they've got better. So today, what is happening is we've all realized that whatever spray and pray we did some time back, that has to come to an end, and we have to become more focused, more channelized. And I think today there is enough wisdom and data available to really pinpoint where should I go. So in terms of segmentation, rather I would say to another level of micro segmentation, uh, because that is the strength of digital, and which we could not even think of earlier. So I think those things are slowly playing out, and of course, every such thing is now being experimented. So but I see that as a change, as a very meaningful change that would happen. I think another big area in digital was the content. None of the companies were geared up to handle that quantum of content, and having a content that would succeed on a digital channel. So the content that we are used to in a physical world is very different from the content on the digital world. And I think we are slowly and steadily trying to lay our hands on to the right kind of content strategy, and partnerships with other companies which could facilitate this. So I think content is another big piece, and just in continuity of this is engagement. So what is the format, what is the touch point where I should engage with the customers that I'm interested in a meaningful manner, so that I don't overdo things, which is right now the situation. And it we have all burnt our fingers by overdoing certain things, bombarding customers with probably the most uh, irrelevant information at some point of time.
Yeah.
So everybody intent was good, but I think it became a collective noise for the customer. So we had to reduce that noise, and I'm everybody in the industry realizes this, and I think they're taking necessary steps to reduce this. um, so that is another big piece. And I think um, what would also happen is, and which we are already seeing, is the automation around it. Because playing at that scale, in that speed, where your content changes every single day, we will need a lot of tech support to make this happen. So I think automation is another piece where companies are investing very seriously on this. And finally, it comes to what do I do with all this data that I've generated? So it ends up with analytics. So that's how the loop kind of completes. So this is a change that I see is happening with where we were to what we are doing now.
Amazing. Sudeep put it very, very nicely and succinctly. I think this is something which is very useful and takeaways for our audience in terms of the power of digital transformation, the engagement with the customers, content as
Yes.
even more critical in what you put out there. The selection of the channel makes a lot of difference as well.
Correct.
And whenever I've spoken to other senior leaders like you, they've also said that the alignment between the content, the context, the channel, and the customer, everything needs to
Absolutely.
be perfect, and that we were never used to.
Never.
We have never done this. Today, we're forced to bring it up,
Correct.
and you can't do random bombardment of mails and messaging because, as you said,
Correct.
it created more noise than voice. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's true. That brings us to the last part of our conversation, Sudeep. I will respect your time. Is um, when you deal with brand marketing teams today, youngsters who come onto your board to handle brands, or doing a lot of multiple things, driving business, talking to.
Mm, mm.
Uh, do you, as the leader of the business, also look at some of the capability building for the future in your marketing team
Yes.
and strategic, building out those capabilities and skills, which are very important to navigate not just the present but the future?
Mm.
What in your realm of thinking are those skills that our audience would also love to learn from you, which they should, so that they continue to remain relevant and
Mm.
at the at the competitive edge as they evolve in their careers? If you could share some thoughts around this.
Sure. So I think I would start with the skills which are relatively new and we have just ventured into it. Both when I say digital, omni-channel marketing, it just entered into it. So it's a fairly new skill still for all of us, but extremely important. So I would begin with that. I think this is something that we have to really upgrade ourselves. Right now, we are just beginners here. Uh, the next one is linked to it, which is analytics. Uh, See, again, within this, one can think that okay, analytics is, people have now started investing in teams and setting up analytics teams, which is okay. But this handshake between a marketing team and the analytics happens with the brand manager or the marketing team playing the most vital role. So, what hypothesis needs to be tested needs to be defined by the marketing team, and those hypotheses or those concepts which we need to check, if that is defined well, analytics can be an enabler in this. So I think these two are extremely right here, right now kind of things which we should definitely upgrade. I think another um, important area is a change in mindset, I would say, and uh, I lay a lot of importance to it. Is a transformation from the current thinking of being a brand manager to a customer experience manager. And what I mean by that is that um, because we have been brand centric, our initiatives, our thinking, our time gets into thinking from the brand, less from the customer, less from the patient. So imagine if we were the customer or the customer experience managers, I would have probably put more effort into understanding what does a patient experience when they first suffered with this problem. And if I'm an experience manager, I would actually try to solve that point with a solution. It may be a product, it may be something else. But since you are a customer experience manager, you would actually think of how can I play a role in the entire customer journey and improve the condition of this patient and the experience of this patient with my interventions. So I think that is a mindset change, um, and I think this is going to become increasingly important as the industry is moving towards customer centricity, thinking more about the patient becoming more powerful than ever before. and more meaningful. They will play and they will have a greater say in all the decisions. Um, Direct to consumer initiatives happening, e-commerce happening, it is getting to the consumer and the patient directly. So it is imperative that we become little more customer centric in totality and move from what our traditional mindset has been from a brand uh, manager perspective. So I think that's one big change in my opinion.
Brilliantly put, Sudeep. I was just listening to you so very intently, and you summarized it so beautifully. So for our viewers, I think the first thing that you said is move your entire thinking process from a brand-centric approach to a consumer experience approach,
Yep.
and that's the first fundamental shift that you do. Second, you said is bring in those new age digital skills like omni-channel
Yes.
driving digital, social listening, maybe, at
Yes.
some time, and those
Yes.
new skills which are so very relevant for today and for the tomorrow and
Yes.
beyond. This third thing you've said is the analytical rigor skills. You've got to do data analytics. You've got to drive and
Absolutely.
take decisions based on investments which is based, not just random dark gaming,
Absolutely.
in terms, because resources are going to get more and more difficult to as the time goes,
Absolutely.
more finite. And I think you said that so beautifully. And I think the fourth thing that you summarize is the mindset. I think you drive the whole thing from an experience program and not just from a brand centric standpoint.
Yes.
I think that is so very beautifully put, Sudeep. And I think this is what I mean. And when we talk of this, I think these are some of the fundamental tenets that marketers need to establish
Yep.
in themselves as a part of their journey going forward. It's so beautiful to have spoken to you, Sudeep, and your thoughts around your journey.
Sure.
And I think I've always believed that you have been more passionately committed as a strategic marketer in terms of your thinking and outlook, and
Right.
handle business as well. But I think your first love has always been marketing and
Yes.
evolving into the finer realms of marketing. And so today's interaction was essentially around the piece of marketing excellence and what it
Right.
takes to be a good marketer. Because you're one of those few leaders whom I've known for a while now who is committed to that process-driven marketing excellence.
Thank
Uh,
you.
I want to thank you, Sudeep. But before I sign off, any closing messages for our audience, which comprises of upcoming marketeers, brand managers, marketing heads, and maybe even a few businesses? If you have any of your pearls of wisdom or takeaways, I
Yeah.
would request mention.
Yeah. So I think the industry and all the viewers, who listen to this, I think everybody has been doing a great job, especially in these unprecedented times. We have risen up to the occasion very beautifully. And I think it's important that we gear up to this wake up call, because something like this in a bigger way or a smaller way can come in any time. And it's up to our own self that we invest time in ourselves, so these skills, let's not wait for it to come and believe that we have time to acquire them. I think it's here and now kind of situation. These are extremely important. Either we take them or we kind of perish. That's the kind of situation. So wish everybody the very best.
Thank you so much, Sudeep. It's a pleasure, real pleasure having you on our series today, and thank you so much for your time. It's been great
Thank
interacting
you.
with you, and
Pleasure is all mine.
thank you, Sudeep. Deeply value your your thoughts on this series, and let's stay connected and stay safe.
Sure.
Thanks once
Thank
again,
you very
Sudeep.
much. Thank you.
Cheers and take care. Good day
Bye
to
bye.
you.